Hello, how are you doing today? Just getting ready to talk to my good friend Nadine. As soon as she joins us, we're doing another Love Me Chit Chat. We're going to continue the conversation we've been having on grief and what's beneath that, the emotions that are beneath that, and specifically around anger. So here she is now. Hopefully that worked. There you are.
There I am. Hello, hello. How are
Hello.
you?
How are
Good
you?
to see you. I'm good, thank you. Good
That's
to
good.
see you.
Good to see you too.
I
So glad
always
we're
forget.
doing this.
I always forget it's the middle of the day for you, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
it's my early evening and your middle of the day.
yeah.
So yeah. So are you having a good day?
Yes, a beautiful day so far. How about you?
Yeah, good actually. Yeah. No
That's
grief.
good.
No grief
Yeah,
today.
no grief.
And
Yeah,
and I don't think any anger either. So there's still
no.
time.
I'm so glad we're talking about this and continuing the conversations we've been having, especially around grief. I think it's something that a lot of times we avoid, and we've been talking about that, not avoiding it and how we can
Mm,
benefit from being in it, but it's such a perfect time to have this conversation. And we always need those reminders of to allow ourselves to open up to whatever we're feeling, and it's a perfect time because we're right upon fall equinox, and
yes.
nature shows us how beautiful it is to let go. So
Yeah.
I love the timing of this conversation, and yeah, just
It
so
is
glad
good,
we're
isn't it? And I
talking about.
think it's interesting because you say equinox, I say equinox. There we go.
Oh yeah.
It's just the way we say it. But it is now, you know so much more about this than I do, but that kind of balance, isn't it? That equal time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's balance as well, I think, with what we're talking about, isn't it? Our emotions and getting that balance is right. But it starts by recognizing what the emotions are to start with. And
Right.
this is what we've had in our past conversations that people have been saying, there's anger, but then actually when you do, if you're brave enough to sit with that, if you are
Mm-hmm.
okay with delving a bit deeper, like you say in your book, don't you all the time lean into it?
Lean into it. Yeah.
If we do that, then we quite often find that there's other emotions, isn't there, with the anger, and grief can be one of them, can't there?
Right.
It can be that.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, leaning into it, I think a lot of times we tend to kind of um what would that be, like circulate around it. We want to like not necessarily go into our grief because I think maybe there's a fear that we'll stay there in that grief. But I think, like you said, it's so important because when we're in that space, we're able to identify what it is exactly we're feeling. Because a lot of times anger can represent that grief, but then there's also, like we've talked about before, so much underneath that as well, and what is really at the root of that. And
Mm,
so,
mm.
I think the reminder is that we don't need to be afraid to be in our grief and to step into that, because we know, we'll know naturally when it's time to move through that and to look for the light. And you mentioned balance, and that's the other, we're upon fall equinox, but also we're changing into Libra season, and Libra is all about
Yes,
balance, so also
of
perfect.
course, of
And
course.
so and then I was reminded by you today that it is World Gratitude Day, and I just did a post about that. But that can be how we balance out our grief, or how we can, remind ourselves that when we go there, there's always a light, there's always a hope to come to bring us out, so that we
Yes.
don't need to be afraid to go in it and to explore that at whatever it is, because as we've talked about, it's so important to identify what we're feeling, and especially around the anger, because that's such a complex emotion, and there's always more beneath it, right?
No, you're so right. I get distracted. I've just noticed a couple of
A
people
couple people
joining.
join. Yeah.
Please do put something in the chat box if you want to join in, ask a question with this conversation. Just to remind you, we're talking the wonderful author Trish Campbell here of Love Me. This is what this chit chat is all
This is the
about, stems
book.
from your book, isn't it? There you go. And the conversations, the questions that I want to ask because I am reading the book, and I get the chance to ask. So if you have any questions, then please do put them in the comments and we will see them and we will answer them.
Yeah.
But also we have been having this conversation for quite a while now, haven't we? We have a little chit chat once a month. We also have a Zoom conversation, which is private and goes a bit deeper, doesn't it? That's once a month. Our next one is
Yes.
5th of October, isn't it? So
Correct. Yeah.
that's something we're going to do, and that's around the full moon, so more energy there,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And
So,
I love how
so
we're supported with that. Like we've kind of just timed this
mm,
so that it seems like every time we have a conversation, there's something, there's always, the energy is always,
yeah,
ongoing and moving and it, no end to it. But we can always
it's
be supported in whatever is
yeah,
going on. And so that's the beauty of it. And be intentional because it's happening anyways. So that's the whole point of,
yes,
us talking about this is to make it
yeah,
more common to allow ourselves to be in our grief and
mm,
identify that's what it is we're feeling because like we have those moments of anger or whatever it is and that what is beneath that that's grief that we're in and contemplating this conversation today it just reminds me that we're constantly in we're experiencing even though we don't realize it like even little disappointments are a point of
mm,
grief and we kind of like shrug them off as oh I'm not bothered by that or oh it's okay if I didn't get that
yes,
promotion or like even if it's something like smaller and but
yes,
we let that build up in us and then when something big happens we realize not only are we feeling what we're feeling in the present moment, but or whatever the experience is, but it's everything that we didn't process up until that point. So,
yes. So true, so true. It's the
yeah,
layers, isn't it?
it is the
It's the
layers. Yeah.
layers, and you explain it so often in your book about if we haven't dealt with something in the past, then it comes up triggered by something new,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just adds to it. And this is the benefit, isn't it, of actually dealing with things when they do come up rather than letting them build, which is easier
Right.
said than done, but it's something we work with our both of our the way that we work with our clients, isn't it, to help uncover these things and actually let them move,
Yeah.
let them release and let them go. And also I think you're right when you mentioned earlier about it's gratitude day. Grateful for that. It's lovely to be
Mm-hmm.
reminded, isn't it? But I did a little, I put it up in my Calm Myself Cafe actually, a little video that was a simple exercise to actually take you
Mm-hmm.
to gratitude. And sometimes that's valuable. It's actually experimenting a little bit. And this is what I do with my clients about how we can actually, with a little bit of mindfulness, actually change our emotions. Might only be
Mm-hmm.
temporary. And there's benefit to that sometimes, isn't there? To actually go, oh, this is what I'm feeling, but to practice, because like you said earlier, we get frightened we're going to stay stuck in that, but we
Yeah.
don't have to, do we? We don't have to.
Right.
So there's benefit.
And
There's also benefit with taking time to sit with your emotions. So I'm a little bit come twofold with that, don't I? Because
well,
it's
I
very,
think there's both. I think there's both with
mm,
that, and you touched on a good point because so that's and then we have that inner dialogue with ourselves. Well, if I'm in my, how can I feel my emotions if I'm trying to change them, or like, is it bad
yes,
that It's not that
yes,
we're saying to change your emotion. It's to be in the emotion and feel it and understand it. But like we said, you don't have to stay stuck there. And gratitude is a tool, a practice that can help you see the
yeah,
light that will pull you
mm,
through, that will carry you through, that will
mm,
allow you to not stay stuck there and will so you can always have that as a reminder that it's okay to go into the darkness whatever you're
yeah,
feeling however whatever you're dealing with and that not let that inner dialogue stop you from going there and
mm,
to like you said, you can shift your mindset around it, but it's not about, that's not a bad thing. We're not saying to bypass
mm,
what you're going through. We're saying to go into it and then allow yourself, that
to know
tools that you
what you can
have
come in. Yeah,
at the ready to pull you through. And then, like you said, be more intentional with the experiences we're having, and we're not so easily triggered the next time because we've been there and we know, what we're dealing with, and we can identify that maybe that outburst of anger was, we were at a low energy moment or whatever, but it's okay. We can always come
That's
back to our
yeah.
practice of going into it and exploring it. And I'll say one more thing because I know you want to add to this, but I feel like being in that space of grief and going there and exploring it is how we learn about ourselves, and that's why it's so important. How we learn like what's going on with ourselves, how we know ourselves better, so that we can relate and be in relationship with each other,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
in a much deeper and more connected way.
It's so, so right, isn't it? Because I think as well, talking about that grief to gratitude, sometimes when you practice stepping into gratitude, and it is a practice that's worth playing
Mm-hmm.
around with and getting comfortable with,
Yeah,
it really is. Some people struggle with it, I've got to be honest, but it is something that is worth persevering with. But sometimes your gratitude can be as simple as going, I'm grateful that I feel the grief or the sadness or the anger.
exactly. And
And
that's
that's something
okay.
just twists it around a little bit, doesn't it? Oh, I'm grateful because we're feeling, because we're learning, because we're
Mm-hmm.
growing, because we then have that ability to choose how we react, to release if we want to move things. And so there's lots to be grateful for, even in those painful moments, isn't there? And I think that's
There
something
is.
for people to understand, that
Yeah.
once you get that, it's quite magical, isn't it? I used to be so scared. I've shared this with you before, but other people won't know. I used to be so scared of my depression,
Mm-hmm.
and I was terrified of it. And I never thought, once I went down, I never thought I would get back up again. But
Mm-hmm.
now when it hits me, and it still does, and that's fine, that's natural, that's what happens. I almost go, oh, here we go. I know
Here we
what's
go.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. And there's a little bit of me that goes, yeah, what's happening now? What's this all about?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm more comfortable with the process that I've practiced over and over again. And I go, okay, I'm brave enough. I've got that courage now because I know I can get out of it, to go, come on then, let's see what this is about. I always learn something from it. I always actually come out a little bit
Mm-hmm.
better. I've grown a little bit. But also, I don't know if you find this, it gives me a little bit of an excuse sometimes to just take a step back and actually go, sometimes a rest, sometimes a little break. I'm feeling
Yeah.
this, so I'm going to give myself what I need. And quite often for me, I don't know about you, it's a bit of time. do you
It
do you feel
is.
that
That's all
sometimes
you
you just need a
need.
bit of
Yeah.
time? Yeah.
That's such a
Mm,
such a good point because yeah, it does allow us to pause for a minute, and that's the whole kind of unlearning that we do in the process of
yeah,
grief, is to allow, to give ourselves permission to just be in whatever it is, instead of the conditioning that we have to stuff it down and to just keep going forward and not let it bother us, and all those, the narrative we have going on, because
yeah.
that is, it's so powerful when we can allow ourselves that space and the grace to be in whatever we're
Mm,
feeling. And it's okay, like, if we, you know, take that time, maybe we're having an inner dialogue about, oh well, I have disappointment, or I have this, or, but that is how we, like, damage ourselves. That is how we abandon ourselves, is by,
mm,
like, not honoring what we're feeling in the moment, and not honoring what we're feeling either emotionally or physically, by saying,
yeah,
okay, I'm going to give myself that time, and going through the process of allowing ourselves that space. Like you said, it's almost like a gift to be in the grief, because, like,
mm,
there's so much wisdom there to be learned from it, but it's also a gift you're giving yourself by going in there and allowing yourselves to feel it. And like you said, you can just say to yourself, oh, here we go again. It's almost like, you're going on a little ride, or riding the wave. I call it riding the wave. Like, the wave is
yes,
always up and down, and so,
yeah,
just like the water ebbs and flows, the tide ebbs and flows, so do we. So, because we're water, and that's just how
mm,
life
mm,
is and how energy
mm,
is. So, it's always constantly in motion. But that gift we're also giving ourselves, not just the wisdom about ourselves, but we're also allowing ourselves to feel it and let go of it. So, we're not carrying
mm,
that heaviness
mm,
with us. And we're not, like, we're letting it go, so, like, the next time something happens, we've already let that go, so it's not like
yes,
something happens and then it's compounded on what happened a month ago because we didn't let
Mhm.
it go or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like if we're
Yes.
talking
Yeah.
about, like, if we get angry at somebody and it could be something we want to address with them or not, but we need to address it with ourselves and let ourselves feel it, so that the
Mm.
next time, and then we decide if we want to have that conversation with somebody or whatever, but we're in a space of being balanced in that emotion. Like there's the word balance again, because we're
Yeah.
allowing ourselves to be in it. You can't be balanced with your emotions if you're
Mm.
not going there. So it's such, there's so much that we're supported in this time, like you said, to if we feel something coming on, just to allow ourselves to stop for a minute. We don't have to keep
Mm.
going. We can be
Yes.
there and just
And I
pause.
think this is the thing, isn't it? To be People don't give themselves permission to
Hmm.
stop for a moment. People are so busy, and that's sometimes an excuse, isn't it, to go, well, I won't deal with that emotion because I'm too busy.
Yeah,
I know I did that. I
yeah,
kept myself busy. I didn't realize how busy I made myself until a therapist said to me, why are you so busy all the time? I go, well, because I'm that important. That's what I felt. But
hmm,
actually, she made me question that. This was a long time ago, and it took me a while to actually realize, come to that conclusion, that I'm making myself busy because it's my way of not dealing with anything. That's what
right.
I
We
chose
don't
to
have,
do.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
but
don't
that
have
was
to
very
take
challenging.
ownership of it. We can
Yeah,
just kind of say,
so,
oh, well, and
yeah,
it,
far too
so
busy.
like, it's such a good point, because we can, there's like, we have so many things kind of working against us, or that can work against us if we're not intentional. We have our societal conditioning that says, well, we have to be productive and keep going and be strong and
Yeah.
don't let things bother you, and all the, the narrative,
Mm,
so that we're valuable and worthy as a person in
yeah,
society. And then there's also the, okay, also, I'm going to use this as an excuse not to go there because I'm so busy.
yes.
I can't deal with this right
That's
now,
That's
and
exactly what
it's
I
like,
was doing. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
too busy to do this now, not realizing that that was actually an excuse because really I was too scared to go there.
hmm,
And then I learned, and it did build for me until it was massive. And then I had to deal with it, but had to deal with lots of layers. But
yeah,
it can make it easier for yourself. And you said earlier something that I want to pick up on, if you don't mind, unlearning. And I
hmm,
love that. And it's another topic for conversation because I know there's
yeah,
quite a bit about that in your book.
yeah,
And it's so true, isn't it? Because we have learnt these things
hmm,
from a very young age. Quite often we don't realize that we've learnt them. We don't realize where we learnt them from. But the important message, again, I think here to share is that we can change. We can
yes,
unlearn them. We can do things a different way.
yeah,
We don't have to stay stuck in that way that we were brought up with, maybe, or we think is just our personality. We can change. And that's
yeah.
quite freeing, isn't it? To
It
notice
is.
that we
It
can
is.
change, we can unlearn. I love that term.
It is, and it's not something that has to be this big monumental shift. It can be something small that leads to, so
Mm,
change begins with that process of allowing yourself to be in your grief, for example. And
mm,
then one little thing you do, it kind of has that domino effect of all these small steps make one big impact, and
yeah,
that's how change happens in your life. It's a process. It's not something that you just flip a switch and it's done. So
mm,
it's just so, like, there, yeah, that's all I feel like intertwined, like the unlearning, because like we're in our grief, we're learning about ourselves, but we're also unlearning our conditioning around going there. And
mm,
like you
mm,
said, you were scared to go there. And I think so much is like going back to how we started this conversation, it's like rooted in that fear of, like, either we're going to get stuck there, or we're not going to like what we see,
yeah,
or we're going to think we're too broken, but there's none of that to worry about, because we're never really broken. We're all here to learn from every experience. So even if it's a negative one, it's here to teach us something. Even if, that sounds like almost like cliche, or, we're trying to love and light it away, but it's not that.
mm,
It's like, it
mm,
is still dark. It's still dark, but the dark can teach us just as much
yeah,
about ourselves as the light can. And we can't, like, I'm just a big proponent of, like, and it's not like, I always want to be in my grief or to be healing or what, because it's like, but it's always ongoing. So once you go there,
yeah,
and it's not staying stuck. It's just like it's kind of like you go in and you come back out, and go in and you come back out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but it's such a beautiful process of, you know, you really see the shifts happening like in retrospect when you go there. So I think,
Yeah.
and then even you see it in, then you're, it's not just something you do with yourself, something I wanted to bring up, you know, in this too. So like we're talking about going into our grief, and you have your gentle questioning that you do. I've worked with you on that. You've used that, your trusted method with me, and it's worked so well. Then you ask yourself the questions, even if you don't know what the question is, and then you find what the question is, and then you ask yourself, and then you get you might not get the answer right then, but you allow yourself,
No.
okay, I've asked myself the question, it's going to bubble up. And then
Yes.
what you do with that is then take that and you integrate that into your life. Like it's not just, okay, you know this now, so now what? It's like now you apply that. Now next
Yes.
time you have that choice, like you said, to do something differently. So that's like really, grief and being in that process is so empowering, because then we're not reacting to a situation when something happens negative or we don't like or whatever. We're now having the opportunity to be, because we've practiced giving ourselves that pause too, so we can take a breath for a minute and then say, okay, here's how I'm going to respond to that, not react. And it's just, there's so many facets to being in your grief that we can benefit from
Mm.
versus
Mm.
being afraid of it.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's, for me, the feeling is of relief that actually I don't
Mm,
have to hold that fear anymore. That keeps me
yeah.
safe. To actually just go, yeah, I can go there. Whatever it is, it's okay. Whatever it is, I'm brave enough and I know what to do to deal with it, you know, because sometimes we do stay there and it's beneficial to stay there for a little while
Mm-hmm.
and work through it and really feel it, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? And then to come
Yeah.
out the other side, and the times that I have done that now so many times, obviously it was a bit scary to start with, and I was held,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people were helping me, you know, I've got lovely therapists, you're one of them, that support me all the time. But to actually come through it and then go, oh phew, you know, because you know, I used to think I was going to die. You know,
Yeah.
it's
And I
so
think a lot
dramatic.
of us do when we're in it, because it's
Really
just so,
scary. Yeah,
you almost
yeah.
like you
And it
can't see the
hurts.
light, and you,
Yeah,
yeah, it's painful. And, but there is, like, you do move through it if you allow yourself to go there. You're not going to stay there. Like we both
mm,
know, we've been in and out a lot. And
yeah,
it's like your body knows when, for example, like you've had enough of crying, or
yeah,
you know, you can only, you know, and
yeah.
then you're going to stop, and then maybe, you know, you start up
Mm,
again. But it's
mm,
like this, we have that natural intelligence in ourselves to, if we allow ourselves to open
if
up
we
to it.
allow, yeah,
And
if we
yeah,
allow,
so I think
yeah.
that's the key, is to go
Mm,
there and just
mm,
trust, even if it is scary.
yeah, mm,
That's, yeah.
definitely. Yeah, you're so right. I'm smiling now because a funny little story just came to mind that I want to share with you
Oh,
because it'll
share,
make you
yeah.
laugh. It's so funny. It's about, because I'm so used to my process gentle questioning, I sort of do
Mm-hmm.
it automatically. And I had a little outburst yesterday evening. So
Mm-hmm.
Simon was very kindly doing the potatoes for dinner to go with
Uh-huh.
our dinner. And I don't like mine peeled. I like them with the peel on,
With
and
this,
he has
yeah.
his peeled. So I explained what to do for him while I just did something else for a moment. Then when I came back, we're just about to have our dinner, my potatoes weren't there. And I was like, and I went, really? I was so quickly. I was very, very cross really quickly.
Yeah.
And which, you know, not something I'm proud of, but I was now. And I did, that process happened straight away. Well, what's that all about? Why am I so cross and everything? I was still
Mm-hmm.
cross, but the process has started and everything. I was still shouting at Simon. That's what I do. Um, and and then what the realization was that came very quickly, I was really upset I wasn't going to get my potatoes. I was looking forward to them. And it was as simple as that. And as
Yeah.
soon as that realization hit, I had a bit of a giggle to myself because
Yeah.
it's ridiculous, isn't it? You know? And then it's gone. But I
Yeah.
was very angry very quickly. And
Yeah.
as I said, not proud of that, but that's, I let my
I
emotions
mean,
do
it
what they do.
happens. Yeah.
It does, and it did over something very trivial. And it's just a little example of that process
Mm-hmm.
working. And it's gone. It's gone.
And
It's over. Yeah.
but that's the beauty of, like, what you just explained is a good example, because like we're not, you know, a lot of times, and the reason why we don't also want to go into the emotions is because we've been taught and conditioned not to feel them and not to express it. So
That's it.
you
Yeah.
expressing that anger, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a
That's
natural human response,
You're so
and
right. Yeah.
so it's like that is, you know, one of the reasons why we're talking about it. But it also helped you, because you're so used to going in and being in, feeling and identifying what your emotions are, and then when you did, you were, like you said, it was real quick, like boom,
It
you know, why am I
happens. Yeah.
doing this, what's behind it,
Yeah.
and then, you know, you kind of let it go and you're
Yeah.
moving on, but you're moving on, but you've processed it, you haven't moved
Yes.
on, and
Not
you're
hanging on
holding
to
it,
that one. Yeah.
so
Yeah, I
that's, you
realised what
know.
it was, and it's gone, and it's changed. My emotion has
Mhm.
changed, and I just, because you said, "Oh, it's nothing to be ashamed of," and I just said that probably a couple of times. Oh, I'm not proud that I got cross.
Right, but it's
So
okay.
I've got to learn to get rid of that one, haven't I?
But that's just all part of the process of going
Mm,
into it. So there's another
mm,
layer of, you
yes.
know, you do it bit by bit, and that's okay too.
Mm,
There's nothing wrong
mm,
with that.
yeah.
It's if you feel that, like you've identified that now. So now, like that, you know, that's
Mm,
something to work
mm,
with,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's nothing, you know, wrong with to feel any emotion, whatever it is. That's just part
This
of
is the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
untangling, you know, the web that we've kind of like weaved through our life of trying to participate in the system that we participate, you know, just live our life according to what society says, like, you know, don't get angry, don't, you know, control your emotions, and you
Mm,
don't express your anger and all these things. But that's just part of who we are. You know, anger is just as valid as joy. So
yes. Yeah. And I think,
it should be allowed, and that's the part of,
yeah,
you know, why we're talking about it and allowing ourselves to be
to let
comfortable with being angry.
Yes, exactly. It's come up in our conversations, hasn't it, that we've had the last few weeks with people,
Mm-hmm.
especially in our deeper discussion, the private Zoom
Yes.
meetings, that, how people do suppress, especially their
Mm-hmm.
anger and grief, lots of emotions they suppress because they have been taught, that's not what we do, that's not how we
Mm-hmm.
do it. And how do we learn? We do have to go back to that unlearning again, isn't it? Then we learn. Like I said, I give myself permission to shout at Simon because that's that relationship. It's okay.
Yeah.
It never lasts that long. It's fine.
Right.
So that's healthy, I
It
think.
is healthy. It is because
Yeah,
it's human. You're allowing yourselves to be
yeah,
human,
yeah.
and that's, I think, you know, the beauty of all of it, and why we're talking about it, and why, you know,
Yes, yeah.
we're talking about being comfortable with going there, and whatever the emotion is. There's just so much more like we could say about
Oh,
this.
yes.
I know
Go on,
we're coming up on
definitely.
a half an hour,
We are,
so
we are. We can talk forever.
but
It's a big subject,
it
yeah.
is a
So
big subject.
I want people to comment. Even if it's afterwards we look, don't we?
Yeah,
And
and the
we
replay. Yeah.
Yeah, we will definitely come back to people if they've got anything to ask or comment. And as I say, we've got our deeper discussion, which will be held on the Zoom on the 5th of October. So look out for that as well. So in the meantime, I've sort of hinted at the fact that this is the work that you do with people.
Mm-hmm.
People find you. How can they connect with you? How can they get
Um,
your book?
yeah, well, I'm here on Instagram. This is Trish Campbell. My website is thisistrishcampbell.com, and you can find this book, Love Me. There's a landing page where you can find it wherever it's most convenient for you to buy it, on Amazon, Indigo. It's in some select stores here in the Toronto area, but it's Barnes and Noble, Amazon worldwide, all of that. So, and thank you to those who have read it and are continuing to share their stories,
Reading,
and for
isn't it?
you to
I'm
come, you
feeling
know,
slowly.
to start these conversations through that. And
Mm.
where can people find you in the beautiful work that you do?
Well, I will say that, but can I just say before I do, the whole point of us, the reason that we're having these chit chats is because of your book and
Mm,
because I'm reading it and it's stemmed questions and I get the chance to ask you. There is so much in your book that really deserves that open questioning and that open discussion. So I would encourage everyone to
thank you.
get the book and join these chats and get involved because we're all learning so much, aren't we? So I'm Karma South. Facebook, Instagram, The Calmer Self Method. I have a YouTube channel which has lots of videos and lots of interviews. You're on there when I interviewed you,
Yeah.
aren't you? So you can find out a lot more about what I do and other people that help as well. So yeah, Calmer Self all over the place. Get
Yeah.
involved.
Awesome. And yeah, you've helped me so much and continue to. So I'm so grateful for you, for, I say it all the time, but just for allowing us to go there and explore what you're experiencing, reading the book. And I do want to say that I have two more extensions, companion books coming to Love Me. And I'm really, really proud of the poetry book, which is this. Love Me
Mm,
Poetry. It's an all poetry version of the book. And I can't wait for that to come out in the fall. I'm not ready to
me
announce
too.
the date yet, but it's coming soon,
Oh,
as well as the
yeah.
Love Me meditations, which I'm doing with my friend Rob, that we've
Yes.
collaborated on. So thank you for
It's
allowing me to
beautiful.
share that here
So
too. I can't wait for
to
those to
pick
come out.
those
And
aspects out, I think, is wonderful because it is your book is poetry as well as just writing. The poems are so beautiful and so wonderful,
yeah, thank you.
and to add that into meditations as well, it's just a perfect evolution, isn't it? So I'm
It,
so glad that you're doing that, and I can't wait till we can get hold of those too.
Yeah,
So
thanks. I can't wait to. So thank you so
mm,
much for all
thank
you
you.
do and for collaborating with me and just your friendship and
Yeah,
everything we do
thank you.
together. I love. So
Yeah, me
like
too. Me
Nadine
too.
said too, if anyone wants to join us, just message us for the next Zoom if you feel called to join
Mm,
that discussion on a more deeper level in a private setting,
mm,
safe container. We'd love to have you
definitely.
join us. So thanks everyone,
Thank
and
you for
we'll
everyone
see
that
you
joined
soon.
today. It's really good, really good.
Yeah,
And thank
thank
you,
you.
Trish. It's been a lovely conversation, as it always is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we'll talk soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.